Lines of fire.
Fort Benning, Georgia, November 23rd, 1943. Dear Ma, for the nth time, please don't send any more underwear. And the milk of magnesia was absolutely unnecessary. I'm having no more bowel trouble and don't anticipate any. By the way, this week they're teaching us to kill. We lunge about, growl, and grimace, and look at each other with hate. We're learning jujitsu holds, and to put it plain bluntly, plain, dirty fighting. This will be invaluable if anyone tries to pick on me again. Everything is done in double time. Confidentially, I'm tired. Mom, don't send any more food. Just lettuce. So long, war.
Gentlemen, the barbarous murders committed on our innocent brethren at Lexington and Concord have made it necessary that we immediately raise an army to defend our wives and children from the butchering hands of an inhuman soldiery. All is at stake. Death and devastation are the certain consequences of delay. And our loss may entail perpetual slavery upon the few who survive the carnage. We beg and entreat, to your own conscience, and above all, to God himself, that you will enlist men to form an army and send them to headquarters with all the urgency that the affair demands.
May 1st, 1861, Savannah. My dear Percy, how in the name of God can you consent to hold a commission under a government whom I know you cannot sympathize with, and will hereafter engage in bloodthirsty attempts at subjugation, such as burning houses and conducting raids that butcher helpless women and children? I pray that your duty will never prompt you to set foot on your native land as one of Lincoln's brutal cohorts, breathing fire and destruction upon a peaceful people. Farewell, Percy. Defend the soil of Pennsylvania if you must, and you and I will never meet as armed foes. But cross her southern boundary, and we shall face each other as brothers who never should. Love to our dear old mother, Thomas F. Drayton.
November 1914, St. Pierre, France. Your country needs you. Your 4 brothers have been killed in her defense. Unless you come home to fight, you are no longer a son of mine. I will have no power in my family.
January 22nd, 1991. Well, we are 5 days into the war. Amazing, isn't it? There have been some trying times, and I'm sure there will be many more before I leave here. I'm fine, and I plan on staying that way. If I ever had any doubts about whether... Back again. In the middle of that sentence, we had a Scud missile attack. One of my people called me outside to tell us what was coming toward our tower. I saw these flashes in the sky, but then they disappeared. You know, before this all came about, I wondered if I would really be able to use my weapon against someone else. I have no question now. If I shoot and end up killing someone, that's just too bad. I never thought I'd say that, but it really puts a different light on things when you're right here, not knowing what to expect next. Take care and keep praying. Every little bit helps. Sandy.
Camp Swift, Texas, May 21st, 1943. Darling, a strange and glorious tale it is, with all the dramatic episodes found in a thrilling magazine love story, where 2 individuals get engaged, a blackout, a rowboat ride in Central Park, an unsurpassable proposal, all entering into the plot. Finally, though, he convinced her that money, brains, and good looks weren't everything. He slipped the magic ring onto her finger. Ye gods, what floating free and light emotions! I must have my shoes filled with lead to keep me from going completely up in the air. You'll excuse the incoherent wanderings. I can't for the life of me get myself to concentrate, especially when I think of you. As for the danger, well, I'll be careful. It's all a matter of luck anyway, where the shrapnel falls, etc. But don't worry, Estelle. Only the good die young. Your Sid.
Dear Sid, that's just what I'm afraid of. I know you'll be in the middle of it. You have that luck, trouble seeker that you are. You do ask for it. Love, Estelle.
The Gathering Storm.
Nashville, June 10, 1861. Dear Miss Anne, after leaving your quiet and beautiful town, I arrived in my old state of Tennessee and never saw the like. Men, women, and children are imbued with the spirit of war. There are over 80,000 underarms in this state, and men swear that they will not submit if it costs the last man. I can hear the fife and drum from morning until night, and I see some of my cousins that were once but little boys when I left here 7 years ago drilling every day. Some think that Maryland will become a great battlefield one of these days, and if so, I will feel for Susan. An invaded country is no place for ladies.
September 3rd, 1864. I received a letter from Caroline telling me that you say I tried to steal my child away from you. Now, I want you to understand that Mary is my child, and she has a God-given right of my own. We're now making up about 1,000 black troops. And when we come, woe be to the slave-holding rebels, for we don't expect to leave them root nor branch. I offered once to pay you $40 for my own child, but I'm glad that you did not accept it. So you just hold on now as long as you can. When I come after Mary, I will have a power and authority to bring her away and to execute vengeance on them that holds my child. You will then know how to talk to me. Spotwood Rice.
Stuttgart, September 6, 1914. Dear Lizzie, I got your letter in Norway as ships had stopped going to Germany. They had to return by train. In Hamburg, I found a letter from my son Franz, who had, of course, put himself once again at the disposal of his old regiment. He was so tremendously enthusiastic. Last year, when he left the army under my most ardent wishes, my only consolation was that in case of war, he need not take part in it. And now, I would bury myself in shame and despair if he remained at home. The French are bringing up their African troops against us, a white people. But we actually do not hate the French, for they are in their right when they seek to reconquer Alsace. Nor do we hate the Russians, a poor, misguided people who are led like sheep to the slaughter without knowing why. But we hate and despise the English, who fight us for mercenary reasons. A brother people who have been intriguing against us for years, but to our face pretending friendship. Never again will I seek their society, as I have done all my life. I will shun them like poison. So, now, dear Lizzie, goodbye. After this, you will not have anything to do with me, and I will have nothing to do with an English person. Thank you again for your lifelong friendship, for which I have been very, very grateful. If my son dies, you shall know it. My existence is terror, fear, anxiety, and yet, if I could gain my country's victory by my boy's death, I would sacrifice him 10 times over, and so would every woman in Germany. Yours sincerely.
August 30th, 1939. On board the Queen Mary. Dear family, I need hardly tell you that the continent and Britain are on the threshold of another war. I knew little of the crisis until my first day in London. Preparations are being advanced in every quarter of the city. Sandbags have been placed in front of important buildings to absorb shock. Blimps are in Green Park, ready to rise at a moment's warning to drop cables to ward off enemy planes. In Canterbury, the stained glass was all being removed, and students at Cambridge are crating old manuscripts. Naturally, All citizens hold gas masks, and hundreds, nay thousands, have left for the south of Wales. And in the churches, the faithful gather in silent prayer for peace. But peace is lost. As I stepped aboard the ship this morning from the pier, a man called to his friend from his bicycle passing by, "I think we shall be over there again." And the friend replied, "Yes, I think we shall." They will die, these men. They will believe to the last that they know why. I don't believe they do. I think no one does. My love to each. Ned.
May 10th, 1942, Edgewood Arsenal, Maryland. Good afternoon, Bud. Estelle, this is probably the only one in time you'll get me in this mood, but I just want to take a few facts in consideration when you feel blue or angry with me for joining up. I've got no right to complain when I'm sick, tired, half dead, or worked to tears, but there's no one else I could write or speak to but you in order to ease the suffering. My alleged pals who didn't volunteer would smile and remark, "Well, he asked for it." Just remember that I'm human like you, capable of sensing fear, anxiety, and for every hurt, both physical and mental, that I've got to squelch within me, there grows a callousness, a hardening of the mind, a hardening of thoughts. Okay, I'll cut this out. Please forgive me. A man's got to blow his top occasionally. I'd better close. No, not that I want to leave you. I'd just rather sleep on all this and try and forget it. I love you. Always, your Sid.
May 19th, 1942. Sweetheart, I just finished your letter, and it seemed to deserve an immediate answer. Fella, I'm not sure I quite understand everything. I gather that your friends have been getting you down. I try not to be scolding or "I told you so" for enlisting. I know with my heart and soul that you had to do what you thought was right. And if ever my letters are grousy, it's just because I'm alone and want terribly to be with you. Sid, more than anything else in the world, I'd like you to think that I understand you, and to know that no matter what you do, it's okay by me, and that your motives are right. Please don't become hard or callous. Don't lose anything that makes you as wonderful as you are. And as far as your friends are concerned, don't be angry at them, because they don't understand. They are just as certain as I am that you have the stuff that the world will need in peacetime, just as much, and I think more, than in wartime. Yours, first, last, always, Estelle.
Love, intimacy, and broken hearts.
October 27th, 1776. My loved one, I am writing this on the head of the drum with a pointed stick. I got your letter at York Island telling me I was a saucy fellow to kiss you before all the folks. My darling, I wish the world knew you would have married me. And do not be uneasy. The officers say I bear a charmed life. They do not know the talisman I wear next to my heart. I am a very humble servant and adorer, John.
March 27, 1863. Dear Mr. Lincoln, when this war broke out, I went riding, and fought and bled for the cause and left my wife. And when I came home on furlough last month, I found out that she'd been diddling other men. And I would like to have a discharge, for she diddles all the time. And she has got the clap, which now I have got to. And I want a discharge for when I get well. If for me you will do as I say, I for you will pray. Yours truly and affectionately, John N.
January 2nd, 1917, True Journey. Dear leader of the company, I, the sign of love, have a request to make with you. Although my husband has only been in the field for 4 months, I would like to ask you to put him on leave of absence. Mainly because of our sexual relationship. I would like to have my husband at least once for the satisfaction of my natural desires. I just can't live like this anymore. I would like to ask you very kindly to grant my request. I will then be able to carry on until we are victorious. With all reverence, Mrs. S.
June 15, 1953. Korea. Dear baby, I just received your last letter in this morning's mail. I held it in my hand for a minute while a little voice in the back of my head whispered, "This is it. This is the one." Yeah, I knew it was coming. I could tell from the tone of your last few letters. You tried to let me down easy. Well, if it's any consolation to you, you did about as well as a thing like that can be done. You asked me if I understand. I do. I never said I was the greatest guy on earth. You did. I just, agreed with you. Now what? Do I say something great like if you ever need a friend? That presumes a future. There are 500,000 North Koreans on the other side of the hill, bound and determined to make sure I don't have a future. Over here, your past is your last breath, and your future is your next breath. You don't make too many promises. But you need what? Goodbye. Yeah.
Desert Storm, April 2nd, 1991. Hey Aaron, so a local Bedouin offered one of my guys 2 camels, 4 goats, 4 sheep, and a son for me. Now I have to have an escort when I go out for PT. Anyway, because I chop on my gams sister to sister, let me just marry Ellen instead of Captain O'Connor. Actually, over here I'm called Captain Frosty because I hide whatever emotions I'm feeling. Quite frankly, I'm very hurt and disappointed that Brad hasn't written me. I've received only 4 letters since Christmas. 4! Yet I get mail from you and Mom all the time. Hell, I get mail regularly from pen pals I've never met. The spouse support group wrote Valentine's Day messages on a large banner and sent it over. I was embarrassed that Brad didn't use the word love anywhere in his greeting. I love him very much. I poured my heart out to him, let him know me. I was vulnerable and I've had no response. I don't want to hate Pat. I want to love him. But I needed him through letters and he didn't respond. Everything else will need to wait. I can't write anymore. Love you, sis. Mary.
June 23rd. Darling, life is tolerable. We're doing little else besides train and train some more. The big event of the week was a small party Lieutenant Rubin gave at his tent. You'll recall he's the chap who received the "I hope we remain friends" epistle from his fiancée, who became engaged to someone else. So we celebrated her marriage, killed a bottle of scotch, laughed, joked. It was all very jovial. Reuben was quite flushed. The boy she married was rich, so we wished her luck, toasted the happy couple, and talked some more. Of course, you entered the conversation after a while. When I told them you were going to Northwestern, there were howls. You've got 2 Army forts there, a naval training center, nightclubs in Chicago, etc. I was a GAR as far as they were concerned. I replied with the usual. Pass the peanuts, please. Still, you're going to need a lot of patience and understanding with me. And let's never grow too old to hold hands in public, okay? Sweet, do you know that I love you very, very much and am very much your Sid?
First casualties.
September 3rd, 1776. Rejoice, my friend, that we have given the rebels a damned crush. We landed at Long Island on the 22nd without opposition. On the 27th, we had a very warm action. The Hessians and our Highlanders gave no quarter, and it was a fine sight to see how they dispatched the rebels with their bayonets after we had surrounded them. It was a glorious achievement, my friend, and will immortalize us. Our loss was nothing. The island is all ours, and we shall soon take New York. I expect the whole affair will be over after this campaign, and we shall all return covered with laurels, and have the cream of American lands allotted to us for our services.
Dear Sissy, we left over a week ago with a transport to Reynoldsburg, and we had a Union scout with us that was acquainted with every inch of ground from Paducah to the head of the Tennessee River. Captain Phillips hates the guerrillas and wants to kill everyone he can. The guerrillas murdered his family and came near doing the same with him. A year ago this spring, 5 guerrillas captured him, and each one of them put a bullet in him and left him for dead. But he recovered and swore he'd follow these men until he'd killed all of them. I saw him shoot one this morning at Saltillo. We arrived at Saltillo, and Phillips heard a rebel lieutenant and private was down in a certain house. Phillips recognized one of the 5 and brought the fellow down to the beach and told him he vowed to kill him and was going to do it now. He then raised his revolver and the rebel started to run. Phillips fired, but that poor fellow ran until he got onto our boat, where he fell and cried that Phillips had shot him. He begged to see Captain Rowan, but our men dragged him out to Phillips, who shot him through the head. This did not quite kill him, and he was shot again. The hole was then dug, and he was thrown in and covered up. I felt sorry for the poor fellow, but it served him right. This makes 2 of the 5 that Captain Phillips has killed, but he says he won't be satisfied until the other 3 are in the same fix. He says he would rather kill each one himself and receive 20,000 apiece than forego the pleasure of shooting them.
November 17, 1914. Dear Betty, I received your letter last evening, and after reading it, I went for a rumble over another part of the battlefield. I came across one of our boys. He composed beyond all recognition. He lay just as he had fallen, and his head was missing. I tried to find something by which he might be identified, but it was impossible. Poor boy. In some way, far away home, someone is mourning the loss of a husband, a son, or sweetheart, and the sadness of it all is they will never know he died or where he is buried. Even now, they may be clinging to the hope that he's still alive. I must close. Love and kisses, Will.
Dear Mr. Andrews, in answer to your letter, we were arrested the same day as our mother. The Gestapo knew we supported de Gaulle, and the real reason for our arrest was to hurt us, to make her break down. We were beaten in front of her, yet she never gave away the names of her comrades. If she had betrayed them or indicated where their headquarters were, most of the resistance groups would have been found, tortured, and shot. I shall never forget her "Goodbye, Ma," and Gary's little smile. On our return to Cannes, we moved heaven and earth to search for her, to reach out, but Elaine did not arrive. In November, we went to Marianne, where my child had been, and we were found a farmer who owns the land. On the 15th of August, a lorry had driven up. He saw prisoners descend from it, and Gestapo agents pushed these prisoners onto the strip of land across the river's edge. He saw all of the prisoners in a row facing machine guns across the narrow river. He heard the guns fire 3 times, and soon after the sound of revolver shots. Some had tried to escape and had been murdered. My daughter had not tried to escape. When she left my room on the 29th of July, she looked so fresh. Her pretty hair had been especially arranged. She had a new dress on. The Germans had destroyed her face. But I recognized the dress. I should like people in England to know about my daughter. She would not want honor or decorations, only the remembrance of her friends. Please excuse this badly written letter, but the memories come back when I mention these events. We send you our best wishes and our most affectionate regards.
April 1st, 2003. Hello, everyone. My time here in Afghanistan is like nothing I can describe. Our first memorial service was an incredibly sad experience. It was strange to have been talking with the parajumpers and then see them run off to save others, only to hear of their deaths hours later. One of them married 5 days before coming here. 2 had June weddings planned, and 1 had a 3-year-old at home. I hoped it was my last memorial, but it wasn't. On Saturday, a Special Forces team went into a village to meet with the leader to discuss humanitarian aid. We were ambushed. One soldier went through extensive surgery and woke up during the night and tearfully asked for his friends. His commander told him they did their duty, and he understood. The SF team sat with their dead comrades for hours in our triage area. I hope everyone is doing well at home. I appreciate your emails. You'd be surprised at how the little things mean so much. Love, Kathy.
Darling, the ghost of Johnny Martin parades before us now. A nice kid, about 20. The Army hadn't aged him much. He laughed a lot and never complained. And what he lacked in education, he made up for with his cheerfulness and eternal smile. I can remember so vividly, so cruelly clear, our last few days before we left the States. We had a beer party. Johnny played the guitar and sang Western and hillbilly music. Sometimes now I catch myself humming the truck driver's blues, his favorite. Now he's just another guy who got off at the end of the line. It is terrible to live with memories only. The soldier doesn't think of the future. His present just exists, and the past is all he can think about. I love you. Your Sid.
Gripes and humor.
Well, George, old Abe Lincoln's dead and gone to hell. The whole race on the go. I'd like to hear from you, but I ain't got time to stay now. I expect to go west, and where I land is not home, even to me. Tell my folks that everything's lovely and the goose hangs high. Oh, and you tell that abolitionist friends of mine that when I die, I want to be buried with my face down, so they can kiss my ass without turning me over. I haven't much else to write, so goodbye for this time. Andrew Stone.
Dear Win, by the great God above, I hate the Army worse than I hate anything. Mark my words, there will be a revolt or something of the kind before winter is over. Our rations have been cut 20%, and heaven knows the boys don't get much to eat now. We're living in quarters that were condemned years ago. If God and His almighty justice have anything to do with winning a war, I don't see how this army can do it. It's rotten and corrupt. So, how's the weather where you are? It's nasty here, cold and frosty one night and rainy the next. I sure don't like England or the people in it. What the hell Hitler wants this country for beats me. You're making a mess over here. Just wiping places out. He hasn't brought any bombs near us yet. I guess he knows he doesn't need to bother about us with the horse doctors we have. Several chaps have died of pneumonia already because the doc said they weren't sick. Guess I'll ring off for now. Right soon, your loving brother, Fred.
October 11th, 1990, Desert Shield. Dear brother, can't say where I am exactly, loose lips and all that, but it's a place to be this season. Clear skies, bags of sun, temperatures in the low 110s. What more could anyone want? Everybody who's anybody is here as well. All you have to do is listen to the VHF radio telephone. Listen to the British warship calling the vessel 4 miles off my starboard beam. Be so good as to respond on channel 16, but I shall be reluctantly be compelled to blow you out of the water. Over. This is the French warship calling. The ship on my port over there. Identify yourself. Over. French warship be damned. I fly my sovereign's colors, and I'll not heed to for any snail chewing garlic, swan frog, and we may lay that. Over. Hey, this is the Canadian warship calling the vessel boot 3 miles away from me. How's it going, eh? And then, of course, there are the Americans. The Americans don't actually speak English at all. They speak Navy. Merchant vessel on course 352, speed 17. This is Charlie Oscar, U.S. Navy warship, 3500 yards, bearing 255. Relative, which are your intentions regarding my unit? Over. This to an Albanian tanker where there may be only one person on board who even speaks English at all, and badly at that. Well, in any case, you see that we don't lack for free entertainment. We have a couple of World War II veterans on board, both merchant marines. They volunteered for this trip. After dodging U-boats and kamikazes, they find this a bit of a yarn. Give my best to everybody. Hope to see you soon. Robert.
Everyone. I was sitting on crew today and realized I haven't shared the tale of my call sign, Heidi, with you. A call sign is usually inspired by something you've said or done, and I didn't waste any time getting mine. There was a terrible storm one day which completely drenched everything. That night we all trudged over to the Combat Operations Center, or COC. COC is a big round tent we call a Thunderdome. There's a little passageway that connects our tent to the Thunderdome, and it was particularly slippery. The admin folks had a table set up in the COC just to the right of the passageway. General Mattis, as in the commanding general of the entire 1st Marine Division, was using the phone at this table. I started heading through the passageway when I felt myself slip. Almost in slow motion, I thought, no! And I was tumbling full force into the COC. The general's back was to me, and I couldn't stop myself, and I went head first into his butt. Yes, my head, his butt. Luckily, the man was talking on the phone and was kind enough not to berate me. Now, every time I see him say good morning, I blush, and he smiles, thinking, I'm sure, yep, that's the girl. Well, I've got to go, but I thought you'd enjoy that one. Love, Heidi.
July 2004. We worked with a lot of Turks and Iraqis, especially the Kurds. The Kurds love us. Well, one of our guys brought his guitar around to the guard shacks and played some music for them. Sometimes they just try to join in. You haven't lived until you've seen a bunch of Kurdish soldiers, complete with AK-47s, sitting around and singing with gusto as they mangle the Beatles' Let It Be. When I find myself in times of troubles, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, little pea. Then he really got into it. Little pea, little pea, little pea, yeah, little pea. Whisper words of wisdom, little pea. That was a good day.
November 3rd, 1944. Sweetheart, occasionally I am seized by pangs of guilt from reading some of my own handwriting. I've always suspected that you don't read my letters, but just scan through them, as you would a paper written in Tonkinese, and remark, I wish I had time to study this strange language. It must be fascinating. You probably grow weary of these outlandish sheets of hieroglyphics that the mailman deposits at your doorstep. But I'll bet they intrigue you because of your anthropological import. With your customary scholarly attitude, you hold the parchments and say, at long last, I have discovered the missing link. And here's evidence that this intermediary civilization had a primitive means of communication. I just wonder what the hell it says. With this in mind, I have taken a slug of scotch and am tackling this decrepit typewriting machine. A memo. Regarding Ms. Estelle Sparrow, to the world, from Lieutenant Sidney Diamond. Number 1. On several occasions there have been questions posed as to the rank and authority in the Diamond combat team. The following paragraphs supersede any previous bulletins on these matters. Number 2, careful study of photographs indicate that the CO is by far the best proportioned, most attractive of all models heretofore presented with bullet point 1, irresistible lips. Bullet point 2, beautiful eyebrows. Note, one must be careful of these. When they are raised, duck for cover. Bullet point 3, ears. Be careful of these. If you get too close, you will be caught by an M2 earring booby trap. The overall picture indicates an extremely efficient fighting machine combined with an obvious beauty, which is dangerous for the unschooled. Number 3, we recommend that this equipment be requisitioned for Lieutenant Diamond and that they get married at the earliest possible moment. Despite Lieutenant Diamond's demonstrated lack of skill in handling this equipment, we feel he is sufficiently interested to study and learn this instrument. And finally, number 4, numerous requisitions have been made for it, but Lieutenant Diamond, however, has A1 priority. Still, I need you and I need you badly. Stay with me, and so help me, I'll do my damnedest to get out of this mess in one whole piece. I love you. See you.
Combat.
October 1st, 1853. Dear sister, yours of the 16th came to hand after about 2 weeks' travel. You asked me something about how one feels when in the hottest of battle. Well, I believe I can tell you. There is no man, however brave he may be, who does not, when the storm begins to rage fiercest around him, when he sees a friend on the right and another on the left stricken down in the agonies of death, does not mentally appeal to God for his protection. But after the man begins to fire his foe, this animates him. His heart throbs wildly, lifeblood hurries like a racehorse through his veins, and every nerve is fully excited. His brain is alive, and he is 10 times more full of life than before. Then as the waves of battle roll on, as he finds that perhaps the foes are gaining, the feeling of despondency comes over him, and he asks himself if the waste of life he sees shall indeed prove fruitless. It is terrible to hear the singing of a bullet and follow its course, and then to hear that little piece of lead suddenly terminate a dull thud as the ball leaps through the brain of some friend beside you. I noticed one case like this. The ball came from my left, and I suddenly heard it go crash. And I knew by the sound that had burst the human skull. I barely had time to look around, and then I saw poor Chauncey Goldsmith quivering and dying. Now, Louise, I will write you shortly. Give my love to all. Your brother, David F. Ambridge.
August 26, 1918. Visit guidance of Lieutenant Adam Warlow. He never thought I just stopped. When my attention was attracted by the repeated bursts of machine gun fire. I saw swift flames above my head. The fight was going on for about half an hour, when suddenly I saw one flame turn over, and a body came out, descending slowly. It was the airman, your son, falling. I saw that first it was a bird. So slowly was he coming down. His coat had opened, acting somewhat like a parachute. He had his arms stretched out, and he hit the ground feet first into a small pond. The ice cracked, but it did not break entirely. The Germans arrived soon, and with some hooks dragged his body back to back. Tuesday morning he was placed in a coffin. On his grave, someone put a cross made from a propeller. More than once I brought flowers, but the Germans took them away. I don't know why.
November 24th, 1943. I'm not sure if this will pass the censor, but I will tell you what happened on the 13th of September. We tried to land in Italy all day, Sunday the 12th, but they were too busy fighting to worry about 100 nurses on a hospital ship. At 5:10, we heard a plane, and then that awful whistle a bomb makes. And then, I couldn't see for the terrific smoke in our room, but it was a mess and an emotion of trying to find my coveralls. When we got on the deck, I'll never forget seeing this one nurse trying to get through the porthole. It was too large to make it. She was screaming terribly because her room was all in flames. One British fellow saw that she could never get out. He knocked her in the head with his fist and then shoved her back into the room. She died, but it was much better than if she had burned to death while conscious. Someday I will tell you more about it. Vera.
April 14, 1945, somewhere in Burma. Dear Helene, in your last letter you say that you wish you were over here. Although most people think, like you, that they are war conscious. Are they really? So far removed from the battlefronts, how can they be? You'll become war conscious when you see the airplanes early in the morning flying to meet their rendezvous and see the same formation returning in the evenings. But the number is not the same. 12 went out, 9 returned. You wonder, what really did happen? Those who went down in the flames, do they die as they do in the movies? I don't think so. Not with a smile on their lips and that happy gleam in their eyes, but rather painfully and regretfully with the knowledge that this is it. You have to see the wounded streaming back on the front after a battle, and above all, to see the light go out of men's eyes. Young men crying and shaking from nervous exhaustion. Strong men they were, strong men they are, or were. Who did they not or will not have a chance ever to live normal lives? People may think they know what war is like. Their knowledge is facts of the mind. Mine is the war-torn, body-scarred to soul's depth. When I was in the States, war was far away, unreal. I had read, had seen pictures, but now I know. Oscar.
January 19th, 1945. Darling, somewhere in the Philippines, in combat again. A lot to say, but A, very tired. B, very, very dirty. C, busy. Busy as all hell. Been moving constantly. Excuse brevity. I love you. You make my foxhole warm and soft. Sweetheart, you're Sid.
Eyewitnesses to history. April 14, 1865, Washington, D.C. My dear wife, wild dreams and real facts are but brothers. This night I have seen the murder of the President of the United States. Early in the evening I went to Ford's Theater. After a little time the President entered and was greeted with cheers. The play went on for about an hour. Just at the close of it, interesting scene, a sharp, quick report of a pistol was heard, and instantly a man jumped from the box in which was the President to the stage and rushing across the stage made his escape. This I saw and heard. I was in the theater and sat directly opposite the President's box. Secretary Seward was also wounded by a knife about the same minute. The city is now wild with excitement. The affair occurred only an hour since. It seems all a dream, a wild dream. I cannot realize it, though I know I saw it only an hour since. William.
May 2nd, 1945. Dearest Mom and Luke, a year ago today I was sweating like shells on Anzio beachhead. And today I'm sitting in Adolf Hitler's luxuriously furnished apartment in Munich, writing to you on Hitler's personal stationery. What a contrast. A still greater contrast is that between his quarters and the living hell of the Dachau concentration camp, only 10 miles from there. I had the misfortune of seeing the camp yesterday. I still find it hard to believe what my eyes told me. A railroad runs alongside the camp, and as we walked toward the boxcars on the track, I thought of some of the stories I previously had read about Dachau, and was glad of the chance to see for myself, just to prove once and for all that what I heard was propaganda. But no, it wasn't propaganda at all. If anything, some of the truth had been held back. In 2 years of combat, you can imagine I had seen a lot of death, but nothing has ever stirred me as much as this. The first boxcar I came to had about 30, what were once humans in it. All were just bone, with a layer of skin over them. Most of the eyes were open, had an undescribable look about them. 20 or 30 other boxcars were the same. Bodies on top of each other, no telling how many. And then into the camp itself. 160,000 persons were originally in the camp, and 32,000 were alive, or almost alive, when we arrived. There's a gas chamber and furnace room in the barracks. 2 rooms were full of bodies, waiting to be cremated. How can people do things like that? I never believed they could until now. Well, I miss you all very much. Your son, Horace.
Dear people, I'm told that you're probably never informed that I was anything other than missing in action. Chances are that you also failed to receive any of the letters I wrote from Germany. That leaves me a lot of explaining to do. I've been a prisoner of war since December 19, 1944, when our division was cut to ribbons by Hitler's last desperate thrust through Luxembourg. The other American divisions on our flanks managed to pull out. We were obliged to stay and fight. Well, the Superman marched us without food, water, or sleep to Limburg, a distance of about 60 miles. From there, we were shipped to a Dresden work camp. I was made group leader by the virtual little German I spoke. It was our misfortune to have sadistic and fanatical guards. After trying to improve our situation for 2 months and having been met with bland smiles, I told the guards just what I was going to do to them when the Russians came. They beat me up a little, and I was fired as group leader. On February 14th, the Americans came over, followed by the RAF. Their combined labors killed 250,000 people in 24 hours and destroyed all of Dresden, possibly the world's most beautiful city. But not me. After that, we were put to work carrying corpses from the air raid shelters. Civilians cursed us and threw rocks as we carried bodies to huge funeral pyres in the city. When General Patton took Leipzig, we were evacuated on foot up to Hellendorf. On that happy day, the Russians were intent on mopping up isolated resistance in our sector. Their planes straight bombed us, killing 14. But not me. I'm writing from a Red Cross camp, and I can't receive any mail here, so don't cry. Love, Kurt Vonnegut Jr.
First, let me say I would not be making it through this trauma without all the incredible support and love I have felt poured onto me. I realize this letter is arriving to you a month late, but it is taking time to express my thoughts. And sometimes I would start to write and just get too emotional. So I apologize. But here it is. My hotel room was on the 30th floor, and therefore, waiting for the elevator seemed like an eternity. I walked to the windows and looked at this beautiful building next door, having all of this construction and renovations done to it. We started our meeting just after 8:30 a.m. My coworker Paige and I were sitting in the back of the room, and she was telling me about how we had to go eat at Windows on the World restaurant. At this point, I heard some really loud crashing sound. I remember thinking to myself, oh gosh, some of the construction from the building next door must have fallen. Bob, my other coworker, who was instructing the class at the time, said the same thing. We continued with business. Because we were on the 3rd floor, we couldn't see what had really happened. There was a gap in the curtains, and I couldn't help but peering out. I saw people beginning to gather on the street corner and noticed they were all looking and pointing up. Bob was having to raise his voice because all he could hear were sirens. I tried to motion to Bob that something was definitely going on out there. A man in our class said, I don't mean to be rude, but can we stop for a second and see what's going on? And just as I got to the window, someone screamed. And I looked up to see a commercial airliner swerving around a building in front of us and disappear. Then another boom and our building shook. As I was looking outside, I turned to Brian and said, I think that's blood and flesh in the street. The emergency intercom system came on in the building and said that the New York Police Department was evacuating the building. We got to a back exit, and a Marriott worker who had not heard the NYPD announcement said, you mustn't go out there. It's terrible. You don't want to see what's on the streets. And someone yelled that we had been told to evacuate, and he commanded that we all keep our heads up and don't look at what's in the streets, just run. We held hands, we ran with the screaming masses of panicked people, and I noticed, though everyone kept turning around and looking up, we all did, and that's when I saw both World Trade Center buildings in flames. Then somebody jumped. I didn't look back again until we got to the point where we couldn't run any further. It was so petrifying to be in the middle of it. People were screaming, America's under attack, we've gone to war. No one could get a cell phone to work, but I was bound. I was determined to get through to someone, and I was shaking so badly. I could barely dial the numbers, and finally I was able to get through to my dad, and the sound of his voice, while it was exactly what I wanted to hear, it made me all the more afraid. I'm afraid that it was the last time. Just as I hung up the phone, I watched the first building fall. There was so much commotion, screams, noise, confusion, and the air around us was getting darker. Massive herds of people starting from this black wall that was quickly approaching. And I remember thinking, this is it. This will kill us all. 5 of us got down and put our faces to the ground, and men covered us with their shirts and their jackets, and we stayed in that huddle. I don't know how long. It seems like forever, until we realized that people had begun to move around. And I looked at all of us with gray hair, bloody clothes, masks on our faces, and I just recall thinking, everyone's the same. Each of us. We're all going through the same thing right now. I think we all just felt this preciousness of life, the importance of expressing our love and to be with those that we care about. It's weird now, that way, that every time I hear a plane fly overhead, I stop and I feel a quick jolt of fear. Every time I hear a siren, it triggers a flashback for me. I realize now it will take time, and I appreciate so very much the constant outreaching of support that I have felt. My love to each of you, and
March 1st, 1945. Darling, I'm listening to President Roosevelt as I write. He has said 50 different ways that he, Joe Stalin, and Winnie Churchill all got along just fine in Yalta. I wonder whether you get my mail. I wonder whether you will get this V-mail letter any faster than a regular one. I wonder where you are, what you're doing, how life is treating you. Emily Dickinson wrote, "Suspense is hostiler than death. Death, though so ever broad, is just death and cannot increase. Suspense does not conclude, but perishes to live anew." I love you, my dearest. Such a darling. Sid. Estella.
After the battle.
November 13th, 1918. Dear family, presently I'm sitting and burning the last little piece of candle that I have. At about 6 o'clock on the morning of the 11th, 2 battalions of the 129th went into the front trenches. At 9:10 a.m. the order was given. The men climbed over the trenches and soon Jerry opened fire and the battle was on. At 9:15, a member of the 3rd Battalion climbed over the top and shouted for the men to come back, but they were gone. One man was killed and several wounded. The order came to headquarters at 8:30 to stop all hostilities. Runners were sent to each battalion. The one on the way to the 3rd lost his way. Because of the delay, they went over the top after peace was declared. If the order had reached the line 5 minutes sooner, they would have been saved. At exactly 11 o'clock, Fritz stopped firing. The armistice was on. I don't know where we will go from here or what we will do. Some are hopeful to be home by Christmas. I will be glad when I bring the mail comes to me. With lots of love, Melvin.
November 22nd, 1918, London. Dear Uncle, the war is over. Tommies, New Zealanders, Australians, South Africans, and Canadians are all dancing arm in arm with girls who are wearing their soldiers' hats. Fireworks are displayed frequently, horns are shouting, street lamps and store windows show life again, and the people smile and rejoice. But as I was slowly wandering down Pall Mall, about to turn into Trafalgar Square, something attracted my attention in the shadow of the doorway. It was a woman in mourning, standing alone and weeping softly. She was silently watching the merrymaking of those living, enjoying freedom again, while she suffered the loss of her sweetheart, husband, boy. Just think of it. Over, mind you, over 3 million men gone. A country annihilated. And for what? For what? Love to all.
November 1945. Dear Arlene, greetings from downtown Kouré. Only it really isn't downtown because there isn't a town. The Japanese are being as polite as they can and treating us like kings, and you just can't hate them for hate's sake. I don't think I've been taken in too easily. I'm pretty skeptical by nature, but who am I supposed to hate? Can I hate the old man who took us to his home for dinner and made us accept his family heirlooms for souvenirs? Can I hate the kids that throw their arms around me in the street? Or the little girl, just 4 years old, who ran up to me and gave me her one and only doll for a present? My answer is that I can't. This may all be a big show of phony hospitality, but I don't believe they could fake the basic emotions with such perfection. I could be awfully wrong, but I have tremendous confidence in the common man of any country. It would have been very easy for me to hate them blindly. I hated their guts when they killed my brother a year ago, but hate only leads to more hate. And it only, if we can get together and work and live together, that there's any possibility of a better tomorrow. Well, babe, sorry this all has been so long, but I've been thinking a lot lately about and had to share some of my conclusions with someone. Be good and write more. Dick.
Dear everybody, I'm coming home. It's official as of this morning. It will be some time before I leave Korea and crash in your door. A few weeks maybe, but I'm coming home. I'm looking forward to seeing you again, but I'm in no hurry to see your expressions when you see me. I want to see you try to hide the shock on your faces. You might even ask me for proof I'm your son. Don't feel bad. I see it on my own face every day. I spent 12 months over here in Korea, the longest 30 years of my life. You know, it's almost funny. We see a guy in a wheelchair with crutches, one arm, books for hands, and we break our backs trying to help him. But what about the wounds you can't see? The phantoms, the nightmares, the ghosts in your head. I'm going to tell you now, you need a lot of patience with me. Patience and understanding. We all will. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. Pat.
New York Times, March 2nd, 1945. First Lieutenant Sidney Diamond, who was with the 82nd Chemical Battalion, was killed on Luzon in the Philippines on January 29th. Lieutenant Diamond was acting as a forward observer during an assault on Fort Stoughton, north of Manila, when he was killed by a Japanese mortar. Lieutenant Diamond, who served 19 months in the South Pacific, received 2 citations. He was studying chemical engineering at City College when he entered the Army. Besides his parents, he leaves a sister, Mrs. Anita Diamond Nicholson.
Remembrance.
January 29, 1882, Washington, D.C., my dear sister. Last Friday, I visited the battlefield of Petersburg and spent 4 hours trying to identify the spot where I fell on the 18th of June, 1864, leading a charge upon the rebel works. Standing and musing there, remembering how I thought of Mother amidst the horrible carnage, I looked down and saw a bullet, and while stooping to pick it up, another, and another. For 17 years, relic hunters have been carrying away lead and iron from that field of mountain. I was told to cart loads. I could easily have found many more bullets had I searched or kicked away the earth a little. But these I had, along with the one that made so straight a way through me. You cannot imagine, I believe, what thoughts came over me as I thought of all those who stood there on that day, and what it was all for, and what it would come, and what would come of it. I shall hasten home now, and hope to see you before long. Trusting you are well, I am your affectionate brother, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain.
January 22nd, 1919, France. Dear Madame, it is a mother who is writing to you, a mother who has been with your dear child in his final days. I thought that by telling you a little of his last acts and gestures, it may soften the bitterness of your grief. Your son was brought to the Paris Hotel, which has been used as a hospital and of which my husband and I are proprietors. Your son's comrades were admirably devoted and cared for him as no nurse would have done. He was for them a little brother, And he was never left alone, day or night. And when they saw him depart, they wept like children. An hour before he left, my husband and I went to see him, and I kissed his forehead in his mother's name. The American authorities had his body brought back to the local cemetery, where he rests beside several of his comrades. When I go to see the graves of my own family, I assure you, Madame, he will have a visit for his mother's sake. With all my sympathies, I am yours, Madame J. Armand.
February 22nd, 1945. My dearest, I visited our old battlefield in the Netherlands and was pleased to find it looked a quiet, contented area with people digging in the fields in the afternoon sun. Everything looked so peaceful and easygoing there that I felt, if this is what we're fighting to restore all over the world, it is right that we should do all we can to achieve it. Children were playing in the ditch where the German machine gunner shot Morgan and been lying. Nearby was Morgan's grave. It's strange that a young Irishman living in England should die for the freedom of Dutch children in Holland, whom he never even saw and whose names he never knew. It seems to typify the tremendously generous spirit of sacrifice made by Morgan and so many others like him. Much love, Charles.
May 22nd, 1999. Dear Mom and Dad, hope all is well on the home front. On Friday, I went out with a patrol of 82nd Airborne Infantry guys on a mission. They gave me a hard time when I first showed up, saying that Congress wouldn't allow them to take a woman on a combat patrol. I told them to stuff it. Hoo-ah! It was good to get outside the wire and see what this country is all about. This place is dirt poor, much worse than Bosnia. As we drove through a village, we asked around and finally found the village elder. He spoke of his appreciation for the U.S. ever since World War II, and his eyes teared up. For the first time, I felt the impact of our presence here in Albania. It makes me all the more grateful for what I have and all the more humble for everything that I've ever taken for granted. Please pray for the victims over here. They are much more brothers and sisters than I think we know. I love you and miss you very much, Chris.
May 10th, 2005. Coming back from Iraq by ship. Dear family and friends, tonight is special. Tonight we pass by the island of Palmyra. It is a seemingly insignificant blob of tropical island sitting right on the equator near Guinea in the Philippines, but it holds a great deal of significance to our family. This is the island where First Lieutenant Will Gravy, United States Army Air Corps, was shot down in August of 1944. Grandpa Ken Gravy had mentioned the island to me a few times as I was growing up. Even as a child, I could sense how raw and painful the memories of this loss still were to him. However, he would proudly tell me the stories of his big brother. And once or twice he mentioned how his brother had died in combat over an island I would have difficulty finding on the atlas because it was so small. I found out that Will was a fighter pilot and had been on a mission escorting bombers attacking Japanese positions. As far as I could gather, he jumped into a fight where he was desperately outnumbered and shot down by a plane or two before he himself was killed. I learned from Grandpa that Will had been married with his wife and was expecting a child when he died. I went up on the single bridge tonight and looked out at the dark silhouette of Palmyra on the horizon. I tried to imagine what it was like to be in this area 59 years ago. The fact that Will died is tragic, but many bomber crews were probably saved because of what he did. The Raby family endured a loss so that others, whom we will never know, could have their loved ones home and produce families of their own. Being near how the heroes are closest, I've been to family 7 months. I called Grandpa Rady on a cell phone aboard ship and spoke to him for 4 minutes. Long enough to hear the lump in his throat when I told him where I was. I was proud to have been able to set eyes upon this place. The way I feel as though I'm bringing a part of Will's spirit home with me. Love to all. Guy Rady.
Dear sir, 22 years I carried your picture in my wallet. I was only 18 years old the day we faced one another on that trail in July. Why you did not take my life, I'll never know. You stared at me for so long on with your AK-47 and yet you didn't fire. Forgive me for taking your life. I was reacting the way I was trained. Killed VC or Goose. Yeah, you weren't even considered human. Since that day, I've grown a great deal and have respect for life and other people of the world. So many times over the years, I have stared at your picture and your daughter. I have 2 daughters myself now. Today I visited the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I have wanted to come here for several years now to say goodbye to many of my former comrades. I truly love them. I'm sure you loved your comrades. We are no longer enemies. And I can now respect the importance that life held for you. I suppose that's why I'm able to be standing here today. I should try and live my life to the fullest. An opportunity that you and many others were denied. Until we chance to meet again in another time and place. Rest in peace. Respectfully, Richard A. Luttrell, 101st Airborne Division.
December 25th, 1944. Darling, Christmas occasions thoughts of warmth, of friendship, of giving. The spirit of the holiday, whether it be Hanukkah, Christmas, or what have you, is a noble and satisfying one. You and I agree that to give and love but once a year is close to the ridiculous. It is not so much the material creations that we reward each other with, but how every day we give a little of ourselves to each other. It would sound inane for me to speak of how different our love is. Poems, songs, stories of love and eternal devotion have all been written about enduring, powerful affection, such as the one that holds us together. Don't mind the overdose of sentimentalism. Maybe it's Little Town of Bethlehem playing on the radio, or the quiet tropical night with the cool breeze and the twinkling stars, or the remoteness of home. There's been so much between us, unsaid and undone. So much of our lives missed. Estelle, for this part of this denial, I beg forgiveness for being such a fool, that I have contributed to your unhappiness. Again, I humbly request that you try and be patient with me. I'd like to fill the air with plans, dreams, hopes, but whatever happens, be happy. That's my only request. Get everything you would have liked. Fill your life. Only keep my little niche open so if I ever do return, I'll know there's one place waiting for me. Let it be a small alcove in your heart. Just a comfortable chair, and always keep a warm fire glowing. Because if I come back in any recognizable form, I'll head directly for that chair. That's where I belong. That's my home. With you. Still, it's a fact. I need you. I need you. I need you. And I love you. Extensively, your Sid.
She's seen it 3 times now.
I know, every time I see it. Yeah. Anyways, at this time, I'd like you all to remain standing if you could for a minute while Paul reads up the song.
Just a chorus of America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious sky,